Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Light Conversations. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. Thank you for being here, and I hope you enjoy today's episode. I'm your host, Tuğçe Koçoğlu-Hobden, also known as Tucci, and I am so honoured to introduce you to my guest today, who is an educator, Cara Newman. So Cara is an elementary educator, and I believe we call that primary in the UK. She's also a mindfulness guide and a creator of Unlearn to Return, a space devoted to helping parents and children unlearn the conditioning that disconnects them from their body's intuition and authentic rhythm of life. With over 20 years in education, Cara blends nervous system awareness, conscious teaching, human design wisdom, and soul-centered practices to support emotional regulation, presence, and meaningful connection in both classrooms and in everyday life. Her work invites people to slow down, to listen inwards, and remember who they were before hustle, pressure, performance shaped their choices. Cara is passionate about helping educators, parents, and sensitive souls live and lead in a way that honors their energy, truth, and nervous systems. Cara, wonderful to have you here today. So I've been so excited about this. I guess I want to just frame this a little bit. So a little bit of context for those who have joined us is that this conversation isn't exactly going to be about education in the traditional sense, is it?
No.
So
we don't do education around here.
We don't. It's really about, I think, it's going to be about consciousness, nervous systems, the children arriving now and who have been arriving right in the last decade or so, and asking us how we reimagine how we teach, learn, and relate, and perhaps how our current systems haven't quite caught up with that shift yet. I know you've got a lot to say about that.
Yeah.
I will also be adding in layers or my perspectives and beliefs around the astrology and how that is being mirrored into humanity, because as above, so below, there is definitely a mirror of the energies. But also, before we dive into the systems and structures, I'd love to hear from you, Cara. What feels most alive for you right now in your work?
At the basic level, just helping these kids be able to be children and allowing them to kind of come to school each day how they are and leave in that same way. The relational skills between children and helping them to really, you can see I teach second grade, which is 7-year-olds, and you can see at this like very, very, very early age who they are. Like right away, they like just show you who they are. They show you their true self. And then that slowly but surely kind of gets taken away or gets suppressed or squashed because we're in a classroom of 20 plus children and you're inside of 4 walls. You're not outside playing, or a kid wants to, I have one kid in my mind in particular who like has some sort of engineering, like constantly wants to like build and things and help things, and I want to be able to have you do that all day long. But in a classroom, so now you're going to do that all day long, and then this one who wants to do his thing all day long, and then you have 21 kids doing their own thing all day long. So it's just like how to kind of shift what education actually is and what these kids are even in the classroom for, walls for, and what are they like. These are all the questions that circle my mind. What do they really need? We want to learn the basics of reading and writing and math, but what do they really need? And when they're in these schools for 5+ hours with other children and adults, how can we use that time to our greatest advantage? Elementary school is a little bit better because by the time they get to high school, you're just like, why are you learning this? There are many things that I see my daughter who's in 8th high school being like, why? You don't need to know this. If you're not going to be a doctor, you don't need to know bio. But in elementary, it's a little bit different because you do need to learn to read and write and do the basic math. I want you to learn those things, but I want them to also learn, I think, for myself, like it wasn't until I was 30 years old and read Eckhart Tolle, Power of Now, that I learned about like consciousness, and I learned about energy, and I learned about presence. I don't want these kids to have years and years and years of high anxiety to only find this out when they're 30 years old, that we've been, I'm not going to say doing it wrong, but like that there was a way better way of doing it. And so it's like I want to teach them those things at such a young age so that they're so aware of who they are. They're so aware of their nervous systems. They're so aware of their minds and their brains and how everyone works differently, so that then they can take that and go through life in a very different way than I feel like I at least went through life, in this like hyper vigilant, nervous, everything, I'm not good enough way.
Yeah, and touching on what you just said about the systems, it's not that it's wrong, it's just different, isn't it? It's just changed. And I love that we've got educators like you in the world, that our children can have the experience of being with people like you who connects with that, the understanding of presence and what that means in consciousness, and and understanding that there is a shift in terms of education and how we were taught versus what children now are needing. For me, it feels like there's just such a shift in nervous systems, and you mentioned the nervous system as well, and there is this shift in the sensitivities of the nervous system. I know as a child that I had a very sensitive nervous system, but there was one way we did things and that was it. That was very kind of standardized. And I think what I wanted to bring in here was that, like, just looking at this sort of industrial age model of standardization that we've had. Education has been built on obedience, standardization, speed, and output, which really doesn't translate to the sensitive nervous systems that we have, and that we are now having. That standardization model, like, children are not going to fit into that obedience model anymore. And it's interesting because for me, looking at it from an astrological perspective, it so fits with the times of where we are within this, with Pluto in Aquarius and with Uranus energy coming through even more strongly this year in 2026 when it ingresses into Gemini. Our nervous systems are so much more sensitive than they ever have been. So I wonder, Cara, from your perspective, what do you think is trying to be born through education that our current systems haven't yet caught up with? What are you seeing?
I mean, I see, especially because now I'm teaching the younger ones, I see like the gifts that they come to school with. And I feel like it's just teaching children about the nervous system, about not manifestation in the way that like we're being taught now, oh, write your vision boards, but just in the thoughts and the beliefs. I really do believe that kids need to learn all those things, and that's what education needs to be about: learning about your thoughts and learning about your beliefs and learning about regulation, learning about your nervous system, learning about your brains and how your brains are all different. We're doing this lady, her name is Jamie. It's called the Balance Classroom. And I started doing in the classroom just like regulation tools with the kids, and learning about the brain and learning about how everybody's brain is different, and learning about how like your brain might need visuals and another person's brain might need written, your brain might need movement, another person's brain might need silence. But then in addition to that, we're going to learn about our brains, but then we're also going to learn about how can we take care of our own mind and our own bodies and our own spirits while also honoring other kids in the classroom. I think bigger shifts need to be made, like smaller class sizes and all that stuff, but that's because you have these larger class sizes, and that's a lot of people co-regulating with themselves and other people. So like I think that also for teachers needs to be something that kids and teachers are learning about. Like, how do we all co-regulate with each other? How do we all honor this space while honoring ourselves, but honoring also the space that we're in together, because we're here together, and it's not going to work if you're running around and you're calling out because maybe that's what you need, but this person needs quiet. So how can we do that? Maybe you need noise, so you're going to put on headphones. Well, this person's going to put on headphones. You're going to put on headphones with music. You're going to put on headphones with silence. Now we're honoring both of you at different times, but it's really teaching kids what they need and teaching kids in relation to what other people need. And also teaching, like for me as a teacher, when I will do like 20 minutes of reading, and I'll say to the kids, this is for you to get better at reading and to practice reading. It's also because I need 20 minutes of silence. I just need it. And I'll explain my brain. Like my brain does not work when there's constant input. So in order for me to best teach you, I need these 20 minutes of quiet. So now we're working together as a team rather than me just saying, sit down, be quiet. Really, there's
So
real,
true.
and there's real honoring of what each child needs and what each teacher needs, so that we can be like we were talking about earlier, in this relation to other people, and know that we are different, our needs are different, but there's nothing wrong with that. What's wrong is needing it to be only your way or your way, and not being able to figure out a way to meet in the middle that works everyone. And then there's other things. There's a lot more, kids need a lot more input, movement. We had to bring that in. The kids, ways to help them calm themselves, but then also just looking at the system, being like, a child's not meant to be calm all day long. So what can we do about that? They're not meant to be just, they're not ever sitting all day long, but they're just getting them outside more, getting them in nature more. There's little shifts that need to be made. Simple things. Put another adult in a classroom, so that now it's not one adult co-regulating with kids, but it's two adults, because they're going to be like Teflon and like Velcroing to the adults. So that, teaching teachers nervous system regulation. There's just a lot of things that need to happen.
And that gave me such goosebumps when you were saying about that. When, you know, there's so many nuggets in that, and I just want to draw a couple of points out because I think it's so worth bringing those through. When you talked about the relation, when you as a teacher are in the classroom and you also express your needs,
Mm-hmm.
you need that quiet time as well. And I think that's so important for children to see, and that co-regulation. And it's almost like I'm seeing how I was seeing is like we've got, from a human design lens, that's how I would look at it, is like all these children in a class, they're all different neurotypes, they've all got different centers, defined and undefined centers, and so have you. And we're all in relationship with each other constantly, we're all in regulation with each other. And again, I want to talk a little bit more about regulation and what that means for us, because co-regulation, nervous system regulation, there's so much conversation over the last few years. It's exploded, right? And I think it's really important that we maybe set a bit of context and define it a little bit more, because I think this misunderstood.
Yeah.
Going back to what you're saying, yes, that child might need her headphones on. That child might need for music because that will help them focus more. Whereas that child, he might need them on for pure silence because
Right.
he can't focus with too much distraction. So
Mm-hmm.
this sort of like this dance, and this beautiful dance of, and then you as a teacher saying, look, hey, I have needs that need to be met too, because I'm human. And they understand that, oh yes, she also needs, but it's understanding that it's not a bad thing to have these,
Right.
to be in this way,
Yeah.
and it's
Yes.
how we
And
are.
then that brings in the neurodivergent piece. Rather than labels and neurodiagnosis, if we were able to say everybody needs their own ways, it wouldn't have to be such a, I need a label to get X. It would be more, every kid in this classroom has their own needs, and how can we meet all of them so that you don't even need that label to get there. I don't know what it is where you are, but we have 504s, we have IEPs. And I remember my daughter, she was in 8th grade and she asked to put on her headphones, and the teacher was like, nope, you don't have you don't have a 504. And her friend was wearing headphones in the classroom, and she told me the story, and I was like, that's so messed up. Just because a person has a label and just because a person has a 504, they're wearing headphones to support them. But meanwhile, if you go into like the work office, like you see people in trains, some people wear headphones, some people don't. You go into an office, some people have headphones to work, some people don't. So we need to teach them at an early age on what's going to work for you and what does your body need. Not because you have a label, not because you have a
Yes.
diagnosis, because we all need something. But it's gotten very big on, well, if you don't have a label, you don't have a diagnosis, and you must be able to learn the exact same way as everyone else. And it's just not the case. It doesn't matter. It's just individually, we all have our own needs and we all have our own systems.
At the end of the day, we are all unique, we are all individuals, and we have our own gifts, whether we are falling into that neurodivergence. And I think more and more and more children are,
Yes.
I have heard banded around by one of the parties in the UK that, oh, it's being overdiagnosed or something silly like that. It's not that we have to get away from this thinking of it's overdiagnosed. This is the, for me, again, going from a energetic or spiritual and consciousness perspective, this isn't going away. This is
Or
the
what is
new, this
right?
is who
Like,
we are becoming. This is who we
yeah,
are.
right. Right. So you're going to continue. Right. So the labeling and the overdiagnosis is not the problem. It's more of just looking at it and being like, what is that telling us? What is it telling us? More and more people. And honestly, when you put a label on it, then you're really just putting it into a box rather than if more and more people are coming up with ADHD or anxiety or whatever it may be, what are those underlying values and gifts that those kids are bringing us and seeing. It's interesting. My daughter's friends were over the other day and they were talking about how two of them have a diagnosis of ADHD, but they were talking about how they get chills almost like that. And I wanted to chime in, but my daughter would have been like, "Mom, shut up." But I wanted to chime in and be like, "That's not an ADHD thing, or maybe it is. I don't care what it is. I'm not even looking at the label,
Mm.
but energetic thing. You're picking up." On other people, you're picking up on the energy of other people. You're picking up something when you're getting those like full body chills here and there. But they were immediately speaking about it as if it was a problem, as if they needed to do.
Yes.
And if we can then, this is not my expertise, but if somebody was to come and have that, and more people, rather than that's just part of who you are, that's just part of your label. If we could be like, no, 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 that's not. That's actually a way that you're interacting with other people. That's something that you're picking up. That's something, a way that you could be in tune with
Absolutely.
energy, whatever it is. I see a lot of those, they're very highly sensitive. They're listening and everyone around them is coming at them in different places. It's more of what are the tools to work with that and what does that actually mean and how can you use those as gifts versus we need to squash it and put it down because it's not going to help you in the world. And I'm not saying it's an easy thing, but we need to learn the tools to work with these neurodivergents.
You've got 20 to 30 children in a classroom, and there's so many different, individuals there. How have you tried, or is it possible to even do that in the current system?
That's a good question. So in the current system, it's challenging. I think that there's a few different layers there. I think one is just teachers learning about themselves and learning about burnout and learning about their own regulation, their own nervous system, so that they're not constantly trying to put out fires or output. Because I think that we as teachers try to do everything and help every individual and do it all. And then we individually get burnt out. So I think there's part of it of teaching teachers about regulation, about nervous systems, about co-regulation, about
Mm.
trauma informed learning, all of that, so that teachers are more informed in the classroom. I also think that every teacher knowing their own way of being, I know that I do better one-on-one. So for me, it's been overwhelming being in a classroom with 21 plus kids because it's just I don't do well like that. So now, okay, if I know that I do better one-on-one and I know that my energy is just like I need that one-on-one, that closeness, I'm going to have to figure out a way in the classroom to do more one-on-one instruction, or even if it's small groups like 4-on-1 while the other kids are doing something that they're doing, because me trying to
Mm.
take care of 21 at the same time and teaching whole class does not work. So it's like a little bit of every teacher learning it, every kid knowing themselves. There's a lot of also just learning executive functioning as well. What are the messages behind the behavior so that we're not like giving out behavior charts and stickers and motivation charts of like, well, if you do this then you sticker, because it's not a motivation problem, right? And then that goes back to that external validation.
Yes.
Now I did it. My teacher wanted me to read 20 pages. I read 20 pages, 10, whatever it is. And now I got a sticker and yay. Okay, how can I keep suppressing the fact that I was just wiggling the entire time, or I needed to move the entire time, or I needed to get up the entire time, but I did the task. So now there's, how do we do both of those things? Are you a person who needs to take a break and then work? Are you a person who needs to work and then take a break? Like really trying to get the kids, like I was saying before, with teaching whole class strategies, whole class executive functioning, whole class, not SEL. Like we teach a lot of social emotional learning.
SEL, okay, social emotional,
So
okay,
we
right,
teach a lot of social emotional learning, which is like how to be kind to others and how to be respectful to others. And
right.
it's very fixed. And I'm not saying it's not important stuff. It's extremely important, but that before the SEL, before the social emotional learning,
Mm,
needs to come the executive functioning. The
yeah,
kids need to learn about themselves, and the end teachers need to learn about themselves and their own brains and their own working and their own, and then
their
be
own
given
triggers as well, perhaps.
triggers.
What they
We
get,
had the
when
other,
are they at their limits? When do they feel,
yeah,
their emotional dysregulation
yeah,
coming through, and what's the
yeah.
response there?
We did a lesson on that the other day about triggers, and we
Mhm.
talked about what triggers you and what can you do when that triggers you. We talked with the kids, like what are simple things that triggers you when somebody tells me something I can do even though I don't think I can do it, when I have an entire sheet of paper to do in front of me. Okay, well then what can we do? We can cover it up and you can do one page. So having the kids tell, and then we talked about our responses to triggers, and we talked about our parents at home or sister or brother, how one sibling might yell at you. Well, another sibling might get triggered and go retreat to their room. Neither of those are bad. So we spoke about what triggers us. And then we spoke about the response to the trigger and how we can respond to the trigger versus react to the trigger. So these are the whole class lessons that the kids need to learn. And then individually, them practicing it and saying, ooh, and that was a trigger for me, or that set me off, or, and teachers really understanding that the messages behind the behaviors so that before things escalate, we can get in there right away and be like, oh, okay, that set you off. Let's talk about this. What just happened?
Yes, we as adults have to understand that at the same time as when we're teaching that for the children and the
Yeah.
adults, like you're saying, the adults, the teachers. Let's maybe bring in the emotional regulation part of it that we're saying, because the internet is obviously and will continue to talk a lot about emotional regulation and our nervous systems. I'm going to bring in human design from my perspective because I think human design helps us know thyself so well. So if
Mm,
we all had that blueprint and go,
mm,
oh, this is me, and look, Tucci's human design is so different to Cara's
yeah.
human design, and how wonderful. But I also see the relational part of it,
Mhm.
and from that perspective, and that in terms of our going back to what you were saying, Cara, about the external validation. I might have a undefined ego center, which means that I'm looking for that external validation through others. And we talked about this earlier, didn't we, in our pre like
Yeah.
conversation. And that is something that we are so conditioned with as adults because we've had that probably even more intensely than the children now, but the children now are getting it almost from different places like the internet
Yeah.
in terms of the validation and how, oh, we must have all these likes. Sorry, I'm kind of jumping around. This is again how my mind works and the kind of the sort of the patterning and understanding the different patterns and then weaving that back into the classroom where the teachers also know themselves and understand and are then able to be like, okay, right, I am having this experience and this is not necessarily a bad thing. It is a
Mhm.
message, right? It is a signal for me to maybe take some time out for all, have a take a breath. So maybe we'll take a breath together. And then the kids experience that from the adult, and that's how they learn as well, isn't it? Through role modeling
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's how they can go, oh, okay, and then that they can take that into their day-to-days. I just find that so fascinating. If everyone, the adults around us, could also do that, the children would really benefit
I
from
think,
that.
yeah. And I think there needs to be an understanding about it, right? Like you and I could talk
Yeah,
so fluent about it, but not everyone has that understanding. So then they either push through or they think that
exactly.
what they're supposed to be doing. The human design piece is huge because it's understanding who you are and what your energetic makeup is and how to use that, and then understanding the kids' energetic makeups. And in the end, it's just really understanding that we're not all the same either, right? And so, because the way that teachers are asked to teach is a cookie
Mm.
cutter way. So that's not going to work either. So we have to really get down to the basics of getting the fact that we're not all the same and we're not all meant to do things the same, whether it be the kids and or the adults. So there's more autonomy as well. But I also think that the kids need to have less data testing and less collecting and more just creativity. These little 7-year-olds, I give them time to color all day long because they're not doing it at home. So now if they come to school and they're in our classrooms and they're there from, let's just say 9 to 3, and then they're going home and they're either going to a structured sport or going on their devices, slowly but surely the creativity is getting taken away from them, and they need the creativity. That is what makes us go around. Like the creativity piece is so important. We lost it as adults. So I like look at these little 7-year-olds and think, I don't want you to ever lose that. I want that creativity to continue being a part of you.
Absolutely. And it's one of the saddest things that I hear from adults is that, oh, I'm not creative.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean? We were all creative. We're human beings. We are creators. But we have an idea of creative. Again, it goes back to what you were talking about, the being good at it, the sort of the metrics behind it. Oh, it has to look good. I have to get a reward for it somehow. But it's just being creative. It doesn't have to be good in a sense that it has to be better than. It doesn't have to be measured against something. It's just
No.
let it flow.
They do. These little ones are coming in needing to have everything measured and needing, even going back to the creativity. So one of the things I'd love to see like a shift in schools is also like like the mind and the body and the spirit and all of that, because even like the body where the kids need to move more and their movement are not being bad, like getting up all the time. It's just because that's what their body's telling them. So from an early age, we need to like teach them, oh, your body has a message. Your body's telling you to do this. How can you do that quietly? Can you do some bilateral movement on your knees while you're listening, but underneath your seat? So you're still moving, but you're not distracting everyone else. But we've been taught everything is in the mind, right? Like academics, everything is in the mind, like everything that we're doing in the school. So trying to shift from that mind into the body so that we're not so top heavy. Everything is like pros and cons and logistics and all that inside of our head. So like, how can we make education less about the mind and more about the experience and getting into the flow?
And the whole self, isn't it? It's the whole
Yeah.
self. We bring it all because the mind is just a part of that. If you look at it from our Kundalini wisdom perspective, it's like you've got the head brain, you've got the heart brain, and the gut brain. You've got these 3 neurological centers. And yes, there's the most amount of the density of neurons are in the head brain. But we now know through Heart Math Institute that the heart actually signals to the brain, not the other way around. Right. We know that the heart field, the toric field, it can extend up to 6 feet, right? It's huge. So that's the electric head brain, magnetic heart brain. So
right.
We want to bring that whole self into it. Like you say, we're just otherwise walking around like heads on bodies with this over analyzing, overthinking, from an energetic perspective, very masculine energy. So do you think that we are slowly, very slowly, coming into more of this whole self, more integrated in way of being in schools? Like movement, you mentioned, is so important for children, especially these 7-year-olds, right? These young children. Yeah. Are you seeing that shifting, and have you seen that over the years of your experience?
I have seen it mainly because kids are not going to let us not do it. They're not the same. I remember when I was teaching like 23 years ago, it was strictly academics, and I would come in and we would all sit and everyone would be quiet, and it was great. We had fun, but like we were there, we were learning. That was what you were there for. Like we did our math, we did our reading, we did our science, we did our group work, we had fun. Kids were way calmer. They were able to just sit in a group and you weren't constantly being like, oh, your noise is too loud. Like they were like able to regulate themselves more. And I think now as we continue on, they're coming in more dysregulated, to be honest. I think it's our world right now is dysregulated and the kids are picking up on it. And I also think that the kids just in general are more just, they know what they want and they're not going to allow anything differently to happen. I think it's a mixture of everything. I think we can't not have the movement. We can't not have the small groups. We can't not teach them the regulation because you just won't be able to do anything all day long. So I think that there are shifts in it, but I think that the structure of the system needs to change in order to keep up with the kids. Right now, I almost feel like we're like battling each other. Like we see different kids and then we're trying the same old tactics rather than being like, wait, the kids are coming in differently. So maybe we need to like do things differently. And we're trying to do things differently, but then there's also just still the push of the academics and the push of the testing and the push of the data and the push of all that stuff. There's like a different like knowledge of kids, but yet the structure and the system hasn't changed to catch up with kids. And then to be honest, it does get thrown on to the teachers. Like instead of like when I first started, I was a teacher. I would teach. Of course, I taught relation because we're in a room with all these kids and you, how can you not? But I was not regulating, helping kids regulate all day long. I was not parenting these kids as well. I was not being a therapist and a psychologist. Like you are like teaching, to be honest, like in the academic sense, right now I find is at the bottom. We cannot even do the teaching right now because we are regulating, helping kids regulate, helping kids learn about how they can regulate themselves. We're parenting as well. I think that there's a huge shift in that too, and not necessarily only the structure of the schools, but like when I started working, you didn't have as many two-parent households working. You didn't have as much technology. 23 years ago, you didn't have email and text messages and voice memos and all that stuff coming at you at all times. We as teachers have more roles than we ever have had because it's become easier to give us those roles because you could just do 10 things at one time because now the trainings are online. Because why can't they be? It makes it easier to be online, but that training is now on top of the other things that you had to do. Now I'm thinking coming from this as a teacher, but I know that the parents are doing the same thing, right? They're working for companies also that they've probably taken on more work or taken on more things because as we've gotten more technologically advanced, we've used it to say, oh, we could do more in a sense. So I know it's not directly answering your question, but it's become harder because we're giving more roles and because the kids are coming in differently, but yet we're still being asked to do things the same old way while also adding more things on top of that. And because parents are not as, and this is not a blame game, but there's also parents who are more overloaded with things these days. So they're not there as the parent that we once had in the past. Again, this is not a blame. This is like, how do we look at the structure in general to say something change because now these kids are coming to school and they're looking for more connection. They're looking for more affection. They're looking for more love. They're looking for all the things that aren't being given to them as much, whether it be because heads are in phones more, or there's more disconnection, or they're behind a screen more when they used to have eye-to-eye connection. All of these little things are making such a big difference that we are now playing cleanup in a way.
It's like creating this tension, this within, like it's squeezing parents, teachers, the entire system. If we look at it as holistically, it's almost like I'm seeing that people, we are all in survival. It's that fight and flight response that we're in, which creates this tension in the bodies, in our energy fields. And parents are asked to do more than ever before. Teachers are being asked to be more than they were ever.
And then teachers are also moms, remember. Not all, but many of us are, because the women heavy, many of us are then going home to our own families.
It's interesting how when we're all in survival has a massive impact on our creativity.
Yeah.
How do we support, and this is not something to answer here, but I guess it's, as we witness this, how do we create systems and spaces where parents, women, teachers, so the children, because at the end of the day, the children are the ones who are absorbing all this as well.
Right. I see. So I have seen, and this could be just an algorithm thing because you don't know what's actually happening in the world versus what's happening in your algorithm behind your phone.
Absolutely.
So that's like the other thing. But I have seen in my algorithm, probably just because of what I'm putting out there, I have seen a lot more teachers who are taking their power back and really learning their own skills of whether it be mindfulness or separating their teacher role and their home role or energetics. I left the classroom. I'm going to close that door and I'm going to go home. So I have seen a lot more teachers, coaches who are coming out there being like, you don't need, you can say no. You're not planning on your lunch break. You're going to take your lunch. So hopefully when
Yeah.
there's also in the teacher well-being, there can be a shift then in the classroom, because I know if I like when I used to work during lunch, I will not, I refuse. So now it's like, I know if I take my 40 minutes on lunch and I really intentionally take that 40 minutes, and now I've been listening to podcasts and stuff, and now I don't even want to do that. I want just 40
Right.
minutes eating my lunch in quiet, because it's a lot of input. If teachers can learn those things, then my afternoon is going to be better because I'm not as overstimulated. I allowed myself to take my break.
Kids feel that, right?
Yeah. And
They're
then
like,
there are teachers
oh,
who are also
calm.
like, I used to plan for hours. I'm not planning for hours anymore. If it can't get done during the day, then it's not getting done after school and it's not getting done on the weekends. Now, if those shifts happen and teachers start to make those shifts and teachers start to say no in a respectful way, things are going to have to change, because we've been saying yes for so long
Mm,
that we've just been given more and more and more. And it's
yeah.
gotten to a point where many teachers are like, nope, I'm going to say no to that. I'm going to put my boundary on that. I'm not going to take home hours of work. And if I'm not going to take home hours of grading, then I'm going to probably have to give less the grade. Right. So, like, I think that there's little things that have to happen inside the classroom. And then I think that there's shifts that are happening. Hopefully, again, it could just be in my little world, but that are happening in teachers are finally saying, no, I won't do that. I'm not doing that. I'm putting up a boundary. And if we can see a shift in the way that teachers are approaching, then we can see a shift in kids. Because I do think that all has that it's all intertwined, right? Like it's
Absolutely.
a domino effect. If I'm the teacher who's going to give work on the weekends and then I have to grade, and I think it's normal to have work over the weekends, now I'm teaching the kids that. And more teachers are like, nope, weekends are sacred. Your teachers are not going to work on weekends. Kids are not going to work on weekends. Well, then what's going to happen? Teachers aren't going to give kids the work. Now kids can learn my weekend is sacred. So it's all intertwined
And
in
then
the
the
way.
parents also. So I'm bringing what
And
you're saying into the parent, the boundaries. And I worked in the corporate world in advertising for 20 years, and I had terrible boundaries. Oh my goodness, my boundaries were
yeah,
pretty non-existent until I was forced to understand boundaries better
yeah,
as I had children. When I had children, like, well, actually, I have to be home by a certain time. I have to say no to certain things.
yeah,
I have to say no to weekend work. And when we can begin to, and like you say, you're seeing it in your through your algorithm, but you're seeing that in
yeah,
the teacher world, and I'm seeing that more in parents around me and the people I work with, and in the corporate world. More and more are able to say no. These are my boundaries, and I think boundaries, strengthening those, is really important, because that, like you said, it trickles down to the children and in the
yeah.
school. So you're having the teachers being able to, because if you're doing that and the parents aren't doing that, then there's a
The kids,
conflict, right, with the kids going,
right.
right.
And where did it come from too? Like I have like in my saying, when we talk about the system as a whole, we as adults went through the same system, right? So we somehow inadvertently learned that you go to school, you come home, you have more work, because
Mm-hmm.
that's what you do. You go to school and then you come home and you do your homework, and then you go and then you do it again. And then on the weekends, teachers give you homework. So we then got into jobs and we were like, well, that's just what you do. You go to work, then you come home and you're supposed to have more work, and then you're supposed to have more work on the weekend. So if we can change that and change that mentality, and teachers can unlearn that, then we can return to a softer way of living, because we're not going to be training kids to do that.
Yeah.
Right? Like we learned it, I do believe, from the school system. We learned you go to work, and you said before the industrial. So, like, I learned I go to work, I go to school, that was my work. I come home and I do more work, because who doesn't take more work home? And then I learned on the weekends, I'm going to study for the tests that I have during the week. Somewhere along the line, that became my norm. And how you do anything is how you do everything. So if we can unlearn that, and parents can unlearn that, and teachers can unlearn that, then we won't be creating the same adults. We won't be creating the same pattern. We'll be
We'll
stopping
be
it.
breaking that pattern.
That's
And it's
not,
ancestral, right? When I noticed that so my dad went to boarding school. He went to a boarding school in Turkey. So all he ever knew was working until 10 o'clock at night every night.
yeah,
when
exactly.
he grew up, my dad was constantly working. He was either he was flying from here to there. He was very rarely around, and when he was around, he'd be leaving the door at the door by 6 o'clock and not
Yes.
back until 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. So what I learned, and my mum was a stay-at-home mum. She looked after us and was the manager of the house. But
Hmm.
what I learned from my dad when I went into my world, my working world, even when I was in temporary work, learned that I had to finish things off. And I was
Yeah.
always the last one there. And I remember thinking, I'm even in temporary work before I even got into my corporate career. I was like, well, I'm just going to finish this thing off. I want to get it done because it needs to be
Hmm.
complete. And, I have Virgo perfectionism sometimes. So unlearning a lot of that.
Yeah.
But I remember then when I went into coaching, I remember unhooking this one pattern. I was like, oh my goodness, when I saw where it came from and I had the
Hmm.
awareness to go, right, this is where it came from. And I spent my entire career in advertising, over delivering, over giving, overworking. And I was like, oh, now I see it. I have now got to that point where I was like, no, this is where it
This is
ends. And
good too.
I love what I do, and it's kind of part of who I am.
Yeah.
But it's not going to bleed into the parts of the day when I want to be present and
Right.
enjoy
Yes.
myself.
We were talking about that earlier, where our minds can go and go and go, and we can feed them all day long. But where can we stop it? And yes, I had the same experience when my dad went to work. He left at 7, he came home at 8. And then that sent the message, well, that's how you work. That's
That's it.
hard work,
Yeah.
safety, security, and and it's you
Hard
do that.
work. Hmm.
You've slowly. So I do think there's a shift, like you said before, masculine, feminine, not man, woman, but you know what I mean,
Yes.
energetic.
Energetics.
And I think that there is a shift into a slower way of being and a more present way of being. And I think that culturally, I think that many people are waking up and seeing it and saying this is no longer working, whether it be in the school system or not. This is just not working. There's just too many of us who are burnt out or feeling overwhelmed, and it's just not you. It's not a way that we can continue on at all.
Exactly. And Cara, I'm conscious of time. I know you've got to jump off. I would love to carry on this conversation maybe
Yeah.
another time because we are not even halfway through. I think there are so many different avenues I want to go down. I want to talk more around the neurodivergence as well.
Yes.
And I want to talk about technology and the systems and education. And honestly, this has just been so interesting, such an interesting
Part
conversation.
two. We'll do a
Absolutely.
need a part two because there's more, and then in the part two, more will come up.
Is there anything we'd like to leave at this part one of the conversation? Any words of wisdom you'd like to share or leave our listeners with or viewers with?
I think it goes back to like the unlearning to return. And like you had just said it, that awareness of what's no longer working for us as individuals and getting to really understand and know ourselves in order to then parent our children and or educate our children in a different way. Because when we start to unlearn those patterns and we start to learn what's been conditioned into us, and then we can unlearn that conditioning, we can slowly return to ourselves, because ultimately we're mirrors, right? So it's like only what's within us that we have the control over, or control is not the right word, but it's only within us that we can change. And when we start to do that for ourselves, we'll start to return to our own home and our own self and our own wisdom. We try to teach the kids everything, but really the kids are whole to begin with, especially the little ones. Like I noticed that. So it's like they're coming in whole. So it's really our conditioning that we can't put on them. And the only way to do that is to unlearn our conditioning, and then we can all meet in the middle.
Absolutely. And it's so empowering when you do that, isn't it?
Yes.
It
Yes.
really is. That's beautiful. Thank you for those gorgeous last words of wisdom. And hopefully next time we can carry on and share more. Thank you so much, Cara. It's been such a joy to have you. I will include your Instagram handle, your website, or all your handles in the bottom of the description of the YouTube video. So everyone could come and find you, follow you, and also comment, share, like this conversation. It really helps others to find the show. But also, we'd really love to hear from you. How did you find this conversation? I think it's such an exciting time we live in. We really are
Yeah.
in such
Yeah.
exciting times, and things are shifting. Systems are changing. Might take a while. We might not be here to see the full changes, but we're part of this journey and the way showers, I believe.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. Thank you so much. This is
Thank you,
wonderful.
Cara, and thank you everyone so much, sending you all so much love, and come back again for part 2.